Guess who's back? That's right, Yo Jimbo here, and we have a video. It's been a little while. If you're a follower of the channel, I'm sorry I have not released any content here in a hot minute, but we're back. I have the motivation, and it is dark and darker, which has given me that motivation. We have an update coming today, and it's a pretty big one. There's some things in there I wanted to talk about, so we're going to go over what the update is and how it's going to affect the game. And we're just going to talk about what is happening. We'll probably have more dark and darker videos coming out soon, some play, some actual gameplay videos and things like that. But let's get into these patch notes. They are on the Discord, so we'll bring that up here, guys. For anybody that doesn't know, if you're watching this video, you probably do know what Dark and Darker is, right? But anybody that doesn't know what Dark and Darker is, it's like a D&D style, kind of like a battle royale. You have a bunch of people spawn into a map. There's a circle that closes in. You collect loot along the way. Little bit of Escape from Tarkov-esque in that hardcore fashion where you lose everything that you bring in if you die. And if you do not escape out of the dungeons, you do also lose your gear, kind of like being lost in raid in Tarkov. There's different tiers of weapons. There's different classes for an RPG element of it. You got wizards, rogues, fighters, barbarians, so on and so forth. And there's a couple different maps that you can play on depending on what you're liking, and tons of different weapons. So if you're into that kind of thing, you should download Dark and Darker. The devs are amazing. The game is relatively cheap. It does not touch the AAA game pricing, so you can get a pretty good deal on that. But anyways, guys, we have a hot fix number 8. They do call this early access. I'm not sure what that really means in today's standard. The game's pretty much launched. I don't think it's going away. But there's some things in here that I want to talk about, good and bad. So what they say here is we're doing hotfix number 8 starting. It's actually happening right now while I'm making this video. You will not be able to log in, so on and so forth. As an experiment, the Ruins map can now be accessed by solo and duo teams. So there was a map called the Goblin Caves, which is a solo map. And there was another map that you could go in as trios. The game was not originally made for solos or duos, and it wasn't balanced for those guys either. But there was a lot of community asking for solos, and we did end up getting that along with the Goblin Caves. And then there was, since then, now a ton of asking for duos. So it seems like they are going to be running those as an experiment, and then also giving us the ability to solo queue into the other map, which was before. You could go in there solo if you wanted to, but a very, very, very high chance if you're going in there solo, you're going to get rushed down by triplets of players. So you had to be either really good at the game or really sneaky to get into that level and get out alive. So we will be able to do that. I think that's awesome, actually. I don't know about the duos. That's never really been a thing that interests me, but I'm also primarily a solo player. So I don't really know what they, what it's like on the other side there, but I am very excited about being able to go into the Ruins map as a solo player. It give me a little bit more variety, not just running Goblin Caves back to back to back to back to back to back over and over and over again. So that is a good change. The weapon damage gap between different grades has been reduced, right? So if you read that and you don't understand what it means, that's fine. We'll explain it here. What that means is that if you have a, let's just say, junk quality short sword that does, I'm just making up these numbers, so don't judge me on them being wrong. You have a junk quality short sword that does 10 damage per swing. There's a bunch of rarities in between there, and you have the unique or legendary rarity, and that does, say, 40 damage, right? So what they're going to be doing here is they're going to be reducing that gap in between, because what would happen is there isn't really any matchmaking in the game in terms of skill level or item and gear score or anything like that. So you would be going in as a brand new level 1 player with junk gear on, and you might be coming across a level 20 player that is, fully decked out in purple and gold items. And obviously, you're not going to win that fight in any scenario unless maybe you're third partying them. But even then, they, if they spin around and one-shot you with their sword, there's not much you can do about it. So they're going to be lowering that gap there, which means that the lower grade items will be doing more damage, and then by comparison, and the higher tier will be doing less damage by comparison. And in the middle there, which should be like maybe blue items, they will be doing, that'll be like the baseline, the average damage that they probably base everything off of. This next one here is something that confused me. I didn't really understand it. So I mean, I understood it, I just don't understand why. The slight damage reduction to stiletto dagger, short sword, rapier, horseman's axe, falchion, and crossbow. The crossbow one I do kind of understand maybe a little bit. It is really, really strong. The falchion, I definitely do understand that one because it is by far the best weapon. But the part that I don't understand is if you are also going to be nerfing the rapier, the horseman's axe, and the short sword along with it, you're still just ending up in a situation where the falchion is still the best weapon to have because you're lowering every other reasonable weapon that people use by the same rate, I'm assuming, or at least very close to. So the falchion definitely did need a nerf, but nerfing the other one-handed weapons alongside of it, a little weird. Nobody uses, like, say, the Viking sword, for instance. That one could use a little bit of a buff. The rapier, I don't feel like the damage was really insane on it. It was more the range of the poke that makes it really, really good. Horseman axe, I don't really ever feel like the damage on that thing was insane or anybody ever complained about it. It was more just about the movement speed and swing animation that makes it good. And short sword, do people actually even use that? I'm actually kind of confused as to why that would even ever get a nerf. People use a short sword. It goes in your offhand. You have to right click to swing it instead of left click. It's really weird. I don't know. I didn't think anybody used a short sword. I am happy to see the falchion getting nerfed. Just not really sure about the other ones that kind of go along with it. Now, it does say that there is a large increase in damage to the Viking sword and the Chris dagger. Now, one of those things is really scary, and it's not the Viking sword, okay? Now, I don't mind the Viking sword. Depending on how big that large damage increase is, it might just become the new falchion. We'll have to see the numbers once we actually get into the game. But the one that's really scary for this one is actually the Chris dagger. So the Chris dagger, and I know, hey, if you guys are rogue mains, you can just come in and yell at me or whatever in the comments. I know that people don't like the Chris dagger for whatever reason, and I don't know what that reason is, but I love the Chris dagger, and I thought it was already pretty decent. A large damage increase to the Chris dagger is going to be insane. The Chris dagger has that animation where it does the poke and then the twist, and that is actually it's actually pretty crazy. A large damage increase to that could be absolutely nutty. I have a feeling you're going to be seeing a lot of the Chris dagger here. Stonks are going up. If you were holding on to any of those, you're about to make a lot of money. I know a lot of people just prefer the actual just the ones that have the stabbing animation over and over and over and over again. The Chris dagger is more like a swipe, a stab, and a twist. I mean, I'm kind of scared. I'm scared of rogues now, knowing that the Chris dagger is getting a large damage increase. The higher quality lanterns have a lower movement speed penalty. I mean, that's good. The lanterns are in kind of a weird place. They don't actually serve any purpose. Nobody uses them for their intended purpose. The only reason we pick up green and above lanterns is because they have a good sell ratio, right? Their gold per slot taken in the inventory is good. But I kind of wish they had some sort of an actual in-game use other than just lighting things up, because that's just not necessary. Nobody uses things to light things up. If I need to light something up, I throw my torch in that corner of the room that I need lit up, and that's about it. The movement, having any movement speed buff that's not actually helping your damage or survivability is just a net negative, right? So that's why people don't do it. The big change here for rogues is the caltrops. So if any rogue mains out there, you never use caltrops. I have been playing Dark and Darker for, I don't know, probably since their very first or maybe second ever playtest that they had. And I have literally never, not one single time ever stepped on rogue caltrops before. And that's not because they're easy to avoid. The reason for that is nobody uses them. Nobody uses them. I've never seen them used in game, and I've only seen the smoke bomb used one time in game. So very interesting to see if these changes make any sort of a difference. The cooldown is being reduced dramatically, it's being cut in half, and then the slow duration is being increased from 2 to 3 seconds. That's good. So this is again, we have something else that's having a slow duration that is being buffed. While the Wizard's Ice Bolt still is absolutely nothing in terms of slowing the enemy. And then we have the caltrop ability count reduced from 6 to 4. I don't know how relevant that is because it never gets used. So I don't know how often you would need to use it in game for it to be reliable. If it's anything like the hunting trap for the Rangers, where you only get 2. That never really feels like enough. 6 seems like it might be a lot. I might give it a try, make a video on it here very shortly once the servers come back up. The Ruins final triple blue portal has changed to 2 single blue portals. So normally the way you escape out of the caves is a portal comes up out of the ground, you activate it, portal opens, you step in, boom, you're transported out, you survive the raid. In the trios dungeons, since it's a trios map, what would happen is a group of portals would come up. It would have 3 portals for the 3 players in your party. And it seems like that is being changed to 2 single blue portals. If I had to take a guess, I'd say it's probably due to something to do with teaming, or something to do with helping solos or duos now. Actually, that's probably it now that I think about it further while I'm talking about it here. It's because they're introducing solos and duos into the new map and into the map now. So this is going to be a change that's going to help them be able to get out of the portals, or get out of the dungeon by themselves. 1 blue portal in the normal Goblin Cave near the end has been removed. I'm pretty sure they added one in a recent patch. So it seems like they're just kind of walking that back. And I have to say, I kind of like that. I like that they make changes. Some of them do seem kind of wild and weird, and you don't really understand why. But I like that they make changes and then they walk them back if they're not the way they, not really what they thought they had in mind, or it didn't work out the way that they planned. We recently saw this with the wizard buff nerf. So wizards were nerfed by 50%. All spells were, which it mostly affected wizards. So they're nerfed by 50% scaling, and it was absolutely terrible. Nobody liked it. Wizards were dog do. You didn't really feel it as much in the end game, but in the early game, it was a pretty big difference where every attribute point and percentage matters for your damage. And they were like, okay, this is a mistake. And they just straight up reverted it back, right? So they tried a thing. It didn't work. We didn't have to wait weeks and months for it to get fixed. They just reverted it back in the next patch. And hey, we all rejoiced. And I think that's really good. I think that that's a good system to have. And it shows that they're actively participating in trying to balance the game. Whereas something like, say, Diablo 4, for example, sorry to poo on Diablo 4 here, but they're like, oh, resistances are broke. Well, you can have that in 6 months. We'll get it fixed, And that's just like, what? It's literally broke. Fix it, But hey, it is what it is. So I think these are pretty good changes. I since they did the previous change, I never really felt like it was hard to get out of the Goblin Caves. There was never a situation where I didn't feel like I have a portal, or I was fighting over a portal or something. So this is a good change. It adds a little more stress to the end game, which there probably should be. Fix an issue where the buckler could not benefit from perks related to the fighter shield. Oh no, poor fighters. They're good at everything. The buckler wasn't working. Poo. It's good they fixed the bug. If there's a bug that's not working, good they get it fixed. Fixing an issue that caused too much damage to be calculated at once. I would love to have the details on this one. Obviously, there's probably some sort of an exploit people were doing to be able to do an insane amount of damage in a single swing that wasn't intended. And I'm glad they got it fixed. I never really felt like since the last patch or anything like that I've been killed by something that felt unfair, other than fighters. But yeah, so I don't think I was ever affected by this, but it is interesting to see. Fix several known crashes. I have never had the game crash on me, so I don't know what these problems are, how many people were experiencing crashes, but I would say I have literally never had Dark and Darker crash on me one single time. As an experiment, we removed the entrance fee to the high roller dungeons. Nice. So the high roller dungeons, they have a fee to get in, which means, you should find people that have better gear in there, which means you should have better fights, which means you should get better loot coming out, whoever survives. The high roller dungeons are kind of a weird place. What actually ends up happening is people go to the Goblin Caves, they farm a bunch of golden gear, and then they go naked into the high roller dungeons, because the high roller dungeons do have like better gear loot naturally on the ground for you to pick up. So they go in naked, just pay the entrance cost, and usually make profit coming out if they survive. Removing the fee completely, kind of weird. I don't know, like, why doesn't everybody just do high roller dungeons now? I feel like it's going to be the thing. We'll have to see how that plays out. I do think that the high roller dungeon system does need to look at, because it's just weird. It's in this weird limbo where it's not being used for the intended reason that it was, the reason that it was made. The trading post and high roller features are locked by an 120-hour time gate for accounts less than 5 days old. That is fantastic. The problem with this is people are, stealing accounts, buying accounts. Bots are, leveling up multiple accounts, and they're, using the trade features, and they're scamming people, and, blah, 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 all this RMT stuff. You know what it all is. And this is going to be a way to try to... See, you can never get rid of cheaters, right? You can never get rid of RMT. You can never get rid of any of this stuff. They always have the upper hand over the devs, right? Because the devs have to be reactive to what these people are doing. They can only react. The devs can't be proactive because they don't know what these guys are going to do. So they always have to be reactive. So the best thing that the devs can do, other than dealing with the problem when they actively can, the best thing they can do is make it as hard as possible for these people to be able to cheat, steal, RMT, whatever the case may be. It has to make them have to work harder for it, because eventually it gets to the point to where the time and money they have to invest into new characters isn't worth what they're getting out of the game, the profits that they're getting out of it. So that's what these time gates here are doing. Unfortunate for new players, trading posts not being available for 5 days or 120 hours. I mean, that does kind of suck, but in the long term, it's better for the health of the game. Some developer comments here. Some of it might be cut off by my camera, but we'll read through it. It says, as an experiment, we decided to convert the Ruins map into a duos matchmaking pool, as is one of the top requested features on the suggestions board of our website. That's fantastic. It means they actually read the suggestions that people are putting in there, and they do gauge them based on popularity and how many times they're requested. So if you do have good suggestions that you think are good, make sure you're putting them in there, man. They're reading these things. They want to hear your feedback. It says, we plan to continue tweaking the settings, including the starting player counts, portal counts, map size, dark storm timing. Based on your feedback, we're experimenting with removing the entrance fee or high roller dungeons, since going into these dungeons is already high risk without the added cost. Sorry, tongue twister. We've also started our first pass on reducing some of the gear gap between items, because this issue has basically been unaddressed since Alpha Playtest 4, whereas weapons could previously do more than doubled their damage going from the junk quality up to the unique quality, compress the damage range, right? Bring them closer together. That's fantastic. That's really, really, really good. The problem is, okay, so if you're a player that went into raids all purple and golded out, right? This sucks for you, right? Because your power level is going down, and potentially somebody with starter gear might be able to kill you, right? Depending on how they balance it. But you have to understand is that those players are the small percentile of players playing the game, right? You are not the normal player. You are not the player that is keeping the game alive. You are not the average Joe playing the game, right? So the changes that they make to the game, this is not some competitive esport game or anything like that. The change that they make to the game have to be to the players that are playing, the majority of players playing the game. And I'll tell you, as fun as it is going in with, purples, golds, and blues, and just wrecking everybody in one or two swings and stuff like that, that's great. But the problem is that the majority of players are using poor junk or even common quality items, and they go in and it does not feel good to, you got a player, you get your positioning, all right, you're hiding, you're a rogue, you're hiding in the shadows. You hear him come around the corner, you stealth. He walks past you, you hit your buffs, come out of stealth, stab, 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 4 stabs in the back of the head. He turns around with foul shade, bang! 1 shot, you're dead. Spectate player, he hasn't done any healing yet. He's only missing 10% of his health. What? Let me check his gear. Purple, 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 unique, purple, purple. Oh, he's got rings. He's got 2 rings. He's got a cape. Ooh, wow. He's got an amulet on. Ooh, his weapon does 64 damage. Mine does 11. Wow. What is that new player going to do, right? You know what they're going to do? They're going to alt F4 and they're going to go play fucking Starfield or something, right? They're going to go play fucking Barbie makeup. Whatever the case may be. It's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. So bringing that gap down, what it's going to do is it's going to shine a light on those players going in with crazy gear, and those players that are not actually really good at the combat in the game, and they're just going with good gear and stomping on people. They're going to have a big light shined on them, because now they're going to have to rely more on skill and combat abilities, and it's going to show when they don't have those abilities, right? So the people who are actually mechanically good at the game, this will have no effect on them. They're still going to be mechanically good. They're still going to outplay you. They're still going to hit you from, with their ranged attacks. They're not going to miss. They're still going to make sure their buffs are up. They're going to make sure they have their potions, their protection pots. They're going to do all the things, and they're still going to win their fights. But what it's going to do is give the lower tier players, the new players, the noobs and stuff like that, it's going to give them a fighting chance going into these dungeons. So I think it's a really good. I think it's a really, really good change. It says, while we've also locked some game features behind time gates to make it more difficult and costly for exploiters to access these vectors of undesirable behaviors before they are caught. Accounts that are less than 5 days old must wait for a timer to count down after the first login before they're able to proceed to the trading post or the high roller dungeons. We apologize for any inconvenience it'll cause for legitimate players, but it'll make the real impact on creating a much cleaner gaming environment. Right. So this is a short-term loss, right? So short-term new players and legitimate players, they have a negative effect, but long-term gains for everybody in terms of making the game better. This is a big one right here because this is a little bit different than what they've said previously. Here, I'll actually move this up. Give me a second here. I'll move this up here so you guys can see it. Just ignore the big black box behind the void. It says, finally, we've noticed a higher amount. All right, I want to preface this. I want to preface this by saying that previously the devs have said that if you are in solo matches and 2 solo players naturally meet up in the game, right? You're like, hey, you're a wizard. Hey, you're a wizard. Let's do wizard things together, right? And you guys team up and you guys go and destroy the lobby, right? That's okay. They've said that that's okay. It happened naturally, not premeditated, nothing like that. They're fine with it. If you are in Discord with your boys and you're like, hey, everybody queue into Goblin Dungeons in 3, 2, 1, click, 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 click. Hey, we're in the lobby together, right? And then you meet up in the game and you go and you destroy the lobby, right? Obviously, it'll take the devs a while to see a pattern of this happening, but eventually, you'd get banned for that type of thing. They do not condone that kind of behavior. But natural teaming up in solos was okay. Now they've noticed it's happening a lot more, and it's one of those things where, like, if it just happens every once in a while, it's like, okay, whatever, that sucks. But it's just natural causes, whatever. But with VoIP coming back into the game, I mean, you can talk to people, through VoIP in game and try to negotiate your way out of things or into things. One of the problems is now with VoIP, a lot more people are teaming up. With no VoIP, right? So here's what happens: a warrior and a rogue, they meet up, and the only thing you can do is teabag, right? And you're like, yes, the teabag. Do I trust this guy? Do I trust this ranger not to shoot me in the back of the head because I teabagged? I don't know. Right? So there was a lot less teaming up because you're like, well, I can't fucking risk it. So I'm just going to, I'm going to stab this guy in the head. And that way he can't turn his, he can't backstab me. But now with VoIP, you can talk to somebody and it's a lot easier to trust people that way or finesse people that way even. So we've seen a lot more teaming up in the solo goblin caves. They said, finally, we've noticed a higher amount of teaming in the maps, especially with the Goblin Cave since the reintroduction of VoIP. Although we want to encourage enough freedom for spontaneous player interactions and emergent behavior, we're also concerned that excessive and pre-planned teaming can quickly degrade the experience for the player base. Before we take the heavy-handed approach of banning teaming outright, we will try to disincentivize undesirable behavior through in-game mechanics. Although it is a minor step, we have decided to remove one of the later appearing blue portals in the Goblin Caves, make it harder for group players to survive in the end if they do group up. This will continue to monitor the situation and be more extreme changes if necessary. Thank you. I do agree with I agree with what they're trying to do here, right? I agree that you should allow there to be some emergent behavior. You should allow some things just to happen naturally. But I also do agree that it makes a really bad experience for the solo players when it happens. I'm the solo player. I don't team up with anybody. Everybody is an enemy. If you see me in there, you're an enemy. Now, I will say, all right, so this actually happened earlier today before the servers went down. I was playing solo, right? And I was fighting a ranger, right? And there was a fighter. He came in a door behind me, right? And he didn't shoot me, right? He could have. He got an easy kill. They could have pinched me together. and I could have easily been dead, right? But he closed the door and he walked the other way. And then I killed the ranger and I continue on with my game. Now, I run into him again in the where the final people left. And I'm like, hey, man, I appreciate what you did earlier. And I'm standing next to a blue portal. I'm like, hey, you could have killed me and you didn't. So you can take this portal if you want. And I'll try to find another one. So he hopped down, went in the portal and left, right? That's good emergent behavior between two players spontaneously, right? He could have done something completely different. He could have killed me earlier in the game. He could have killed me right there when I was giving him the portal. I could have killed him when he was coming to take the portal, right? But it didn't happen. We had good politics back and forth. So having emergent behavior between players in the game is a good thing, but they do have to take some steps towards excessive grouping, or else it ruins the fun for the solo players. Now, I don't think getting rid of one portal is the way to go about that. I think it's a very, very small step and not a very good one, right? So if the game starts, you meet another player, you guys go through and you roll the whole lobby together, right? You have a huge advantage over everybody else in the lobby by doing that. Chances are you would be the final two people left, as long as you're not idiots. And what's going to happen then is like, oh, there's only one portal left. Okay, well, it's a fight to the death. This means you have, when you're normally in the game, everybody's actually a solo player. Your odds of surviving and getting out and whatnot are much lower than 50%. There's a much higher chance that you're going to die to something while you're in there. When you are teaming up and you are steamrolling through the whole lobby, you're mostly guaranteed a 50% success rate going through there, right? You're going to get to you're almost guaranteed to get to the very end, and then it's a 50-50 fight between you and the other guy, because there's only one portal left. So, your odds are still extremely high of getting out of that portal with the most loot, and so I don't think this is really a great. It functionally does what they want to do, right? Both of the teamers won't get out together because there's only one portal left at the end, right? So one of them is going to get sacrificed to the D&D gods. But, the other one is, they still get their guaranteed free loot and stuff like that. So it is a small step. I do think we need to see a couple more steps there. And with how much they're doing updates, I do believe in the next update, we'll see more progress on that. And I think that's fantastic. Hey, guys. Overall, these are good patch notes. If you're a Dark and Darker player and you're not in the Discord, you should be. This is the best way to stay up to date. Look at this. They post all of their patch notes in here. You can go through all of them, right? So you should definitely be in here if you want to stay up to date with the game. There's plenty of really, really good channels in this Discord if you're looking to team up and just chat and ask questions and things like that. This is not sponsored in any way. It's just a really good resource if you're an enjoyer of the game. Also, if you want to know more about the game, make sure you follow my YouTube channel here. And we are a variety channel. I usually get stuck on a game for a while. And if it's really good, like Dark and Darker, I'll put it this way. I sit down on the computer and I play Dark and Darker. And I really do want to play Baldur's Gate. And I really do want to play Diablo. I really do want to play Path of Exile. And I really do want to play Starfield. But when I sit down in this computer chair, every single time, I don't boot any of those up, no matter how much I want to. I would love to be playing Baldur's Gate right now, but I can't wait till the servers come up for Dark and Darker, and I can just get in there and start playing. That's how good the game is. And we're going to be making more content on the game here coming forward. So, sub to the channel. Like the video. Comment down below. I'll see you guys later. Adios.